Well, welcome, welcome to Texas Senior Softball Podcast. We've already got somebody falling asleep because it's past our bedtimes. Um, this is actually going to be episode number 10. It's going to involve Q&A to an extent with Matt McGee and Bart Adams on how we're going to run their tournaments, rules, how they're going to try to get them to explain how they're going to rank teams. Don't know if that will happen. But first thing is, Matt, how'd you get involved in running tournaments and why?
How's it going, everybody? Well, I last year I reached out to Mike, and I reached out to another couple of organizations telling them I was interested, and didn't hear anything back except from Mike. And he told me, hey, next time I was in his town when he was running a tournament, to come talk to him. And so I did that, and basically he helped me out ever since then. And of course, unfortunately, Mike has passed on, and Bart was his right-hand man, and Bart's kind of taken over the reins, and it's definitely helped me out as well. But one of the main reasons I started doing it was because last year we started a team called Weekend Warriors, not weekend, but Weekend Warriors. And every weekend we were having to travel. We looked at our schedule, and every single weekend, Flores put it together, and every single weekend we were having to travel. And so we all got kind of tired of that. And so I was like, well, if I can, put something together, if somebody will help me out so where we can get started, I'll try to build up some teams in the North Dallas area, North Texas area. So that's kind of what's happened.
So when you did that, did you realize you wouldn't be able to play in the tournaments anymore?
That's fine. I'm not that good.
Well, just to tell you, for 2 years I was hounding them to bring tournaments up here. Oh yeah, we run two times a year. I'm driving down south every weekend with Austin Classics.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough, especially for a team that's not sponsored. It's really tough. Because you're gonna. A lot of times the tournaments, it's not a bad thing, but sometimes the tournament's 2 days, or at the very least it runs late, and that's fine. But when you're having to carry your own cost and there's no hotel rooms and all of that, the cost kind of adds up, and not everybody can get away from their family overnight. So, it works out.
Yeah. The first tournament I played in, we didn't know it was a 2-day tournament. We get down there and Austin Classic makes it into the second day for the first time ever. We have to find a hotel room, and it goes to 30 degrees the next morning. It was 65 the night before. So not only were we looking for hotel rooms, but we were looking for clothes because we were getting cold that night. So I'm glad you did it. Gave us somewhere to play up north.
Well, yeah, Bart's been really, really helpful, and he helps out a ton. So it's not a one-man show by no means, but we get it done, I think. And, I know we're going to go over rules and stuff like that and why things change and why things don't. But, there's some growing pains, definitely. But they've always had a way of doing things. And that's really not going to change except for, a couple of things here and there. But for the most part, they had this stuff worked out. They've been doing this for years. So.
Well, you mentioned it. So let's get into why the rules change from tournament to tournament. I actually didn't have this planned because normally we kind of know what the rules are when we go to the GSA tournament. But you did make a post where you posted the rules, which I played in the league for 2 years. I've never seen. But you posted the rules and you said that they won't always be the same, but they'll be somewhat the same. So explain that.
Yeah, well, a lot of times people don't see the back end of things, right? So, for instance, last year in November, Bart and I talked about the schedule in the bracket, and you just simply have time restraints. We try to get these things in 1 day, right? So you have the city telling you, hey, this is a hard curfew. Those lights are going out at 10:30, let's say, in Richardson. So you have to make that happen. And what we came up with basically is, instead of going, because we usually do 0-0 counts, right? For that tournament, we went to a 1-1 count. And I think that was pretty much the only.
We're going to it this year.
Right.
We're going to go 1-1 count.
It's gonna be 1-1 count the whole year.
Yeah.
Can you make sure sprinkler systems don't turn on there?
Yeah, right. That's another one. But you know what I mean? Like little things like that. And especially for, there's just simply time restraints sometimes. And you have to make adjustments here and there just to get the games in and to make things run seemingly as smooth as possible. So that's just some of the reasons rules may change, but it's never really anything major. It's usually things like that. It's like 1-1 or 0-0 count, or no courtesy with a courtesy, things like that. So if we're doing pool games, they may be 45 minutes instead of 50 minutes. Things like that, just to get the games over with so that we have a championship game that's not rushed, or what if there's an if game and we don't have the field, like there was almost like in Richardson, and people were getting mad at me because I honestly made a bad decision, and those things happen. And
we tried to ruin that one for you.
Well,
we tried to make
it happens, and I made a decision, then tried to back up on it, and my friend Kelly didn't like that, and I don't blame him at all, to be honest with you, because I should have never let it get to all that. But things are better now, so everything's all good.
So other than time restraints, when we go to a tournament, we'll know that these are the rules.
Oh yeah,
pretty much, unless y'all will tell us if something's going to change.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not trying to drag up bad stuff, but we showed up at the tournament and found out there was rules in play that we didn't even know about.
No,
so that's my thing.
Yeah, no. Bart gives me. Bart usually he'll ask me about a week out and say, "Hey, we'll kind of collaborate and say, hey, are these the rules that we've agreed upon?" And we're like, "Yeah, the only changes is maybe like I said, 1-1 count or something." And then he'll write up the rule sheet, and I usually send that out. See, I have a messenger thread with all the coaches of the teams usually, and we disseminate that information throughout those coaches. And so if the coaches aren't getting it to the players, I would highly recommend that they do that. But we give the rules to those coaches through that way, and we'll start doing it also through the North Texas softball senior softball site, but also like I said, I give it to the coaches for sure.
Did you hear that, Kelly? Get the words out to us. All right.
Kelly's new. It wasn't going through him at first.
Oh, actually, those rules, the only confusion was towards the end of that tournament, and with the time restraint, everybody understood it. Oh, now let's get to, Bart, you can chime in anytime.
Okay.
You don't have to sit back there and just listen. But let's go to February the 8th. This is, and I've got questions about this because I'm not a big fan of 250s. I wasn't a big fan of 250s when I was young because for some reason I can't hit in a 250 tournament. I can go a whole tournament and hit like 3 home runs. You put me in a regular tournament, I can't keep in a 300-foot fence. It kills me. So, one, are y'all going to keep doing this during the winter? Just after y'all see how this works.
It's an option. It depends on the park. In this particular instance, Carrollton had the 250 fences up. Their league is not over yet, so they're not going to take the fences down and put them back up for league. So this was kind of a one-off situation on February 8th.
And the second thing is rules. I know you posted them, but let's go over your rules on how you're going to operate this, because this is going to be interesting. You're playing a 250-foot fence with senior bats, and y'all know as much as anybody, you can oops 250 with the senior bat. Now, I did see some of your video, and y'all did have some strikeouts and groundouts, and people taking walks.
Those were league. That was league.
They were tournament players.
They want that T-shirt real bad.
So get into how you're going to actually operate the 250 tournament, so these guys know when they get out there what they're looking into. I won't be there.
No, really, the rules are the same as all the rest. The only real modifications are going to be that, and and we got kind of lucky. A lot of these teams, all of these teams are AAA teams, so there's no run spotting. And we did make a concession on the home runs. We normally do a straight up. We don't usually change this at all. Usually it's 3 and 1 up for AAA, and then 6 and 1 up for majors. And so, but explaining everything and knowing how 250 works, we thought it would be best to raise the home run limit, kind of a middle ground for the AAA teams, because it is 250. It is going to be a little chillier. The balls are going to be flying, people can say what they want about 250. It's tough. It's tougher than you think to put that ball within that 50-foot gap between the fences. And so, then that's the one, like I said, this normally would have been a 3 and 1 up, which I just think was not nearly enough. But then going up to say, 8 and 1 up is also too much. So for some of these teams, so we just kept it right in the middle. We went 5 and 1 up, and we like the 1 up. I don't like doing 10 home runs or 12 home runs, because if you get a mismatch there, you take a lot of the skill out of the game, and there's a whole nother subject on that. But we like the 1 up, and I think the 5 and 1 up is going to help keep these games competitive and won't let them get completely run out of the building if there is a mismatch. And then what else? What else is there?
Oh, I'm not playing it.
No, you have the rules though, right?
No,
7 runs an inning.
Oh, it's 8. It's 8.
8 runs.
So it's 8 runs an inning instead of 5 runs an inning. And that, again, it's 250. There was a lot of talk about 10 runs an inning, but then, hey, if you it's going to be rough. And so 5 is not enough. 10 is probably too many. So we just split the difference and said 8. I did want to play a lot more league games to get a feel for it. We've only played 1 week out there, and we have a 5-run limit out there. And to tell you the truth, it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. And there's a lot, some of these teams like Slinging Wood, they're in the league. Mayhem's in the league. Haoli's is in the league. I mean, there's not terrible teams, and I know there's only 4, but the games weren't that bad. As far as they wasn't 40-40. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of, craziness going on. There was outs at first. there were people hitting too many home runs. But yeah, I mean.
Okay. Aren't y'all hitting the stadium balls out there though?
No. These are our balls.
Okay, y'all hitting y'all's balls.
League.
League.
Yeah, we have stadium balls, and you can literally bunt the ball in it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Half swings.
That's ridiculous. You got the tournament coming up on the 29th.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen your list yet. I know you posted it, but you didn't have all the locations down.
Still don't have all the locations down.
On the 29th, you've had some issues with location with Carrollton.
Not really. What we had there, and I'll go ahead and tell everybody now, what we had there was a lot of rainouts for their 250 league. And so the 250 league wasn't going to be over with on the 29th. So what I ran into is the fences were still up. Nobody wants to do another 250. I get it. And so Richardson was open. Richardson only has 4 fields. We wanted to get more teams. We already had more teams signed up than what we could handle. Plus, they have a lot of charges and what have you that we don't necessarily like. But so we're going to play the 29th tournament in Plano at Heritage Yards, and we're going to have 5 fields. The tournament will start at 8 a.m. and the curfew is 11 p.m. So it's a 1-day. It's a 3-game guarantee. We're trying to get 18 teams. That's the max that we can do with 5 fields and get done, within 1 day of their curfew. So that tournament, we're looking to max that out. We have 15 right now, but we need 3 more teams to max it out. And that tournament's going to be really, really good. It is a AAA and majors tournament. So
now on that tournament list that you showed the other day, you had 250 teams in it, 50 and 55 teams. Are they going to stay in the tournament?
Mm-hmm.
Pull out?
The 2 that are on the list are still in. One of them pulled out, and I added another one.
Are 40 is going to be spotting those runs.
Yeah, you'll spot 50s.
So they'll play by the.
And again, well, they already see Bart has, equalizers already set. It's just a matter of which ones do we, kind of implement, right?
Okay,
I mean,
now that you mentioned equalizers.
no, I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, we're going to
I'll
talk about
I'll talk about equalizers.
Well, it's a simple question.
None.
On the equalizers, you spot 5 runs, but in the past playing GSA, I've played it 2 different ways. I played it, you spot the 5 runs and you get the home runs of the team that you're playing at the upper level, or you spot the 5 runs and you play with your own home runs. Which one's it going to be this year? I haven't got decided yet.
I'm in the process of deciding. Okay. When we started doing the keep your own level home runs, I got a lot of complaints about that. But we also get complaints from the upper team that if they're having to spot 5 runs and give more home runs, then it's more than an equalizer. Yeah. So, I'm trying to take all that into account. I don't like different home run levels in the same game because it's just something else the umpires have to keep up with. I think the 1-up rule is the best home run rule out there because if both teams are hitting home runs, they can keep hitting them. It's
that I absolutely agree with. The 1-up and not having like 10 or 12. And I don't have anything against 10 or 12. It's fun as long as you're playing upper ball. But when you're talking about giving these AAA teams 10 versus a major plus team with the same 10, it's not really the same 10.
Well,
I mean, it just isn't.
To me, when you're going, and you're right, because you have a AAA team playing a major plus team, that AAA team is not going to hit the 10 home runs. But to me, and I've been on both sides of this with Austin Classics playing Franks and MVP, if you spot the 5, but you don't get the 5 home runs or the 6 home runs, you pretty much nullified that run spot because they hit 2, 3 home runs and you're down the run already. And you're like, okay, well, what was the spot for? The spot was absolutely useless in that aspect of it. So that has always been my complaint.
The hardest thing about equalizers is it changes from game to game and who's playing.
Right.
Sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's not enough, and you really don't know until the game starts. Even 2 teams that you think are pretty evenly matched, it gets in their head, and it's not right. Equalizers are not really equalizers.
Well, and the aspect of it, a AAA team can play a majors team and be spotted the 5 runs with the same amount of home runs. To me, that's a true equalizer because at that point, you're dead even.
Yep.
And you spotted the extra inning. And the major team should be able to run away with it when you get to the buffet. Should be. You do have your instances like when we took out Franks. We scored a total of 6 runs and beat them because they were hurt, injured, and tired. Yep. And then we went and played MVP and
right, and
runs made absolutely no bit of difference whatsoever.
Right. And honestly, what you're dealing with is a side effect, right? Having to have equalizers is a side effect of one thing, and that's not having enough teams. And that's
separate brackets.
Right, to have your separate brackets to where we don't have to have equalizers. And that's always going to be the case until we get there. And that's what I was saying the other day on someone's post on Facebook. But we really need to ask these teams, for patience because it's going to take time. We're trying to build up a good base of teams. We're trying to build up the AAA. We're trying to build up majors. And so that the major teams can play, the major plus teams and have their own, bracket and keep them separated because it gets cartoonish when you start talking about some of these AAA teams playing, a really good, say, quick roofing or, MVP or front row. Those teams don't have a shot in hell unless you give them, an absurd amount of, some kind of crazy equalizer, which makes the game not really a game. I mean, we're talking like, doing stupid stuff, 2 outs instead of 3. I mean, giving them 11 fielders, stuff that's just not really within the game. So we're trying to get away from equalizers altogether. The only way we're going to do that is to be able to grow the senior softball just as a group. We need to have more teams, and it's happening. We're just going to have to still deal with the growing pains and just ask people to be patient. Trust me when I tell you this, I don't want to turn down money. And so when I have, Perry Hensley asking me, hey, can we play this weekend? The last thing I want to tell him or tell any team is no. RCM, no, you can't play. Why? Well, it messes up the whole tournament. So
if you play, 3 or 4 teams are going to drop out.
You walked into this one. So since you've already opened this door about stopping the Major Plus guys from coming up here and playing, my next question is, and we've always played them down south, are they still going to have a place to play down south?
I'm going to try to do separate brackets whenever I can. The problem with that is if there's only 3 or 4 major plus teams in Texas in the 40 and over division. So they don't want to play the same teams every tournament and play them 2 and 3 times in that tournament. And I get that. But the only way to grow it is to get more teams.
Well, and fortunately up here, and I know when I travel down south, we have 10 to 12 teams down south all the time.
Yes.
And a couple of them would be from up here, but not many.
But that's kind of a challenge too between us.
Yes.
We separated our tournaments on purpose, obviously, to try to have so that there's not any, conflicts. And then we tried to, best we could, not schedule our tournaments in conflict with, say, what are they called?
SS USA or
U-Trip champion, say like
the conference.
Yeah, the conference, tournament. So, and there's new people getting into it, and I love it. That's fine. Jason Torres is starting it up. U-Trip is making a good push. That's fine. It's all going to grow. And like I told him the other day, like different isn't wrong. Just because they do it one way and we do it a different way, it doesn't mean that one of them's right and wrong. We're just different. I'll just say that, the one thing that I know for a fact is I might be new, but GSA has been doing this for years. And so,
There's one thing I'd like to add to that. We've always tried to pattern our program after SSUSA and to some extent SPA because the majority of teams that played with us in the past were going to go to Las Vegas or to Dalton, Georgia. So we didn't want to be a totally different set of rules and things like that. We want them to have a similar experience so that they can get ready for those year-end tournaments. Because SSUSA runs 3 or 4 events in Texas every year. SPA runs 2 or 3. So, teams need to play more than that in order to go and compete in Las Vegas.
True.
In North Texas, I don't think the teams are as interested in going to Las Vegas at the end of the year and things like that. So, there may be some differences in the future because of that.
Well, I can tell you that playing in your tournaments, when I went to Vegas with the Classics, did not prepare us for what we ran into up there. We got it handed to us the first year in majors, and that was another thing is up there in SSUSA, your first year,
You're a
even though
major
their
team.
rules state they're going to put you in AAA.
You're a major
If
team.
you have no teams, they do not. They throw you in majors.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that whole situation when we have an SSUSA tournament coming up here later in the year. Because I believe they got their state championship's going to be in Dallas this year.
Yes, it is. In
and
Grapevine.
And then they've got they moved to Grapevine.
Yep.
And then they've got one in College Station again.
Mm-hmm.
And one
They actually have
Georgetown.
2 in Grapevine this year, and 1 in College Station and 1 in Georgetown.
So they're going to actually run more tournaments this year than they have in the past. All right. Well, next question I haven't seen anybody put any questions on here, which means nobody's listening. I'm sure Stacy's talking trash like usual.
I see Torres.
I've got to go to your side and see what Torres is saying. My next question for y'all is the rankings. Are y'all going to have split rankings, north-south? Is it going to be one ranking? And then are y'all going to play a north versus south championship if you're going to do the double rankings?
See, rankings are tough. I have, some insight because I still play.
You do?
I try. I'm not gonna, I'm out there. I don't know how much good I'm doing. But so I know a lot of the players, I know a lot of the teams, and specifically, and I think it's the same for Bart, but down south, Bart has watched a lot of these teams start, from scratch. And so I'm doing the same thing. When I started last year, we only had maybe 3 teams. And so a lot of these teams are being established now, and you have to give these teams time to grow and mesh as a team, because otherwise it's just a ton of pickups. And that's great for the game, but it does take time to become a real team. And so you got to be careful with bumping a team just because they win one tournament, or bumping a team because they win, get second place. It takes time. And a lot of times, you have teams that pick up, 3 or 4 really good players, but they're not really on their team. And so you got to be careful with bumping teams, or you just have to be patient. And like I said, we're starting from scratch up here, essentially. And it's a little bit more controlled, I believe, down south, though.
So are we talking about rankings or classifications? Because to me, that's 2 different subjects. The rankings have always been done on a point system. So the more tournaments you play in, the more points you get. And that's where you're ranked in the state, per se. Classifications, we've always gone by SSUSA classifications. And if a team doesn't play SSUSA, then we have to place them where we believe they fit until they prove otherwise. If a team comes in and says, oh, we're a AAA team, and all of a sudden they're winning 2 or 3 tournaments in a row, then we have to look at them. It's not always about how many home runs you hit. It's how you're doing against the competition. And, we try to be as fair as we can with it. We don't want to bump somebody and then have to drop them back down because they can't compete at that level. But by the same token, we don't want somebody dominating the lower levels and not playing the upper teams.
That makes sense. Now, when you say y'all are going to go as close to the SSUSA ranking, so if a team's ranked in SSUSA, that will be their ranking for GSA.
That's where they'll start.
Okay. You want to get into that right now, or you want to get it set first?
Okay.
Okay. I was going to say, why don't y'all get that one set first?
Yeah.
All right. I believe I've lost my questions. Okay. I touched on that. You kind of touched on keeping major plus teams out.
You asked earlier about giving major and major plus teams a place to play. Yes, I plan on giving them a place to play in my tournaments.
Okay.
And Matt will too if he can get enough to form a separate bracket.
That's why I brought it up, because we've got 15 teams registered right now, all AAA majors, and I know some of the guys that I played with in the past that are major plus now that would like to come play, and are being turned away. And they're like, well, why can't we come play? And my concern wasn't necessarily his answer. It was more of, if he's turning away, then y'all turning away. It kind of leaves them nowhere to play in the GSA world.
Right. We've already talked about equalizers being tough, okay, and not working. And that's just one classification difference. When you start getting 2 classification differences, it multiplies. It doesn't,
Right.
you can't spot 10 runs. Yeah. That's too much. But is it really enough? So I mean, it's better to have it's better to have one level difference than try to mix in. It's like in men's ball, running a DE tournament and letting B and C teams in. It's just, it doesn't work.
I've made those arguments in some of the conversations I've had with the guys that I've discussed this with. I'm all for playing the best competition you play. I didn't have a problem doing it when I was playing with Austin Classic, but like you said, it never really mattered. The only time it matters is when we caught a team that just lost, was fighting with each other, hurt or tired. And
And
Other
we,
than that,
and we
were
all know
never
who you're
close.
talking about.
Yeah, and we were never close other than that. So I get it. I understand it. I get ragged on because I mention that all the time. Oh, you just don't want to play the good teams. Yeah, I do.
Well, to
And
say,
I get
you know,
I get where these AAA and AA teams are coming from, depending on where you're at. Hey, we can't compete with these guys. And I wanted these guys to hear that out of the directors' mouths instead of just me.
well, no, I mean, it's not that we don't want it. It has nothing to do with wanting or not wanting. Trust me. Again, they're paying customers just like everybody else. I don't want to turn anyone away. However, to keep building what we're building, I mean, you can't have, a front row come in and play AAA teams that are just forming for the first time and expect the AAA teams to come back. And those are the teams that are going to keep coming back. And it's not that front row won't be there, but I get it. It's tough. Being good sometimes sucks, but it's just tough.
It's also teams that are built to compete on a national level,
Right. And
playing local teams.
And they're dealing with they have somebody that's sponsoring them, that has a, $60,000, $80,000 bankroll versus, guys that are just weekend. Yeah. Just coming out to pay $35 and having a good time. And I get it. People are going to say, well, hey, step up, whatever. But look, man, we're just trying. That's what we're trying to do is to eventually get to a place where we have, 20 AAA, 20 majors, 20, major plus teams, and so that everybody can be happy and play separate.
Well, as far as what I see where we can start, because North Texas is blowing up.
There's tons of talent. There's tons of people over 40.
And every weekend, there's more teams getting put together.
Right. And I saw this gap last year. I saw the gap. I saw there was an opportunity, and that's why, Mike kind of, to be honest with you, at first, Mike kind of brushed me off, but I told him I'm not going to quit. And he goes, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm sure Mike honestly thought I wasn't going to do anything, but you start working and you start building these teams. Literally, some of these teams, I'm not going to say I built them. I'm not going to take any credit like that, but I've definitely helped people out and connecting, and that's fine. I like doing that stuff, and I think that's why we went from 7 or 8 teams the first tournament to now we're talking about 16. Even at Worlds, they talked about, hey, we didn't know we were going to have this many teams. Well, I'm just saying, like, there's probably 5 or 6 of those that came from, being started up with us. So it's growing. And like I said, Torres is going to have tournaments. There's going to be, tournaments everywhere for people to play. And that's fine. It's all good for everybody. And there's going to be differences with everybody. And that's fine too. As long as we have given them somewhere to play and, the rules are somewhat, and it's mainly, to be honest with you, it comes down to the umpires. The umpires need to know the rules because you can have the rules on black and white all you want, and they can make sense all they want. But if the umpires don't call the game correctly or consistently, none of it matters. And that's why, to be honest, I love our umpires. You got Casey, you got Kenny, even Brandon, even though he's not senior, but Tim. These guys play senior ball a lot of times. So, they understand the game, and Bart has the same thing. He has a lot of guys down south that have the same thing. They've played the game, and they care, and so that right now, I think, to be honest with you, if you're talking about, separating, is GSA's umpires are going to call a consistent game and have, and call it by our rules. So,
well, the only other thing that I have left, because y'all pretty much answered everything I have. And I don't have any questions.
Well, Stacy said, "Why don't we like him?"
Question? Well, Stacy knows that answer.
He smells bad.
I don't agree with every team that plays on national tournament has a bankroll. Frank's never had a huge sponsor of the bankroll list. Well, that's because y'all let Stacy sponsor you.
Well, Rhino too. Rhino does a good job, though. He takes care of his folks.
My last thing is the upcoming tournaments you'll have. We have the one on the 29th.
I have one on the 22nd in San Marcos.
Okay, so February 22nd?
Yes.
Okay. Somebody mentioned that they thought it was on the 29th.
No. We didn't do them on the same weekend.
Okay.
And March 14th in Houston.
Okay, so y'all did not touch the March 8th tournament that conflict up here because they're trying to blow that one up as well. But
I think there's a 7th and 8th with someone else, and then
Jason.
Bart has
But
one
there's
down
also
south.
one in Temple that's ISSA
Oh, is there?
that same weekend.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's why I stayed off of that weekend.
so
And I think-
I didn't have Jason's schedule at the time.
are you going to get it all finalized and posted on the
Yes.
Texas softball Texas style page?
Softball Texas style
Okay.
website. Yes. I honestly hope to have that
Are you
done
going
this
to
week.
put Matt's on there
Yes.
because he's procrastinating
Yes.
Mine's been done.
on the not
Not on the softball
on the
Texas style.
softball Texas. Page.
But that's
I'm in the
his,
process of combining our
Oh.
young ball, my tournaments, and Matt's tournaments
So-
all into one to give to the webmaster
So
to
you want
load
your
at
own
one
web
time.
page, huh?
No,
That's
no,
his
no,
page.
no.
You want your own
That's,
web page?
no, he's got to give his information over to somebody else. That's the.
It's
Right,
my
that's-
fault.
That's
I started late this year,
Well, I mean,
And-
for good reasons. I
and
mean,
mainly because I didn't realize how much of a pain in the butt it was.
well, with Mike leaving us
Yes.
this year, that caused some issues.
There's a whole lot of things that
He did.
I didn't give Mike credit for doing that I'm finding out that he did.
Well, I get that all the time. Like, how much are you making? How much? I'm like, dude, you couldn't
You don't
pay
get
me
in this
enough.
to get rich.
No, and you're not doing this for a living.
Well, I talked to y'all about trying to do it myself. I just
Yeah.
didn't have the time.
Right. It takes a lot
Oh.
more time than you realized.
So, and actually, I'm glad you're doing it now because I'm changing jobs. I'm really not going to have time. So,
no, it's
that's
tough.
all I had. I just wanted to get. I was actually trying to get Matt to call in, and instead he wanted me to take a helicopter flight out to his brother's house. But I kind of like the fact that we did this way, guys. Also, right before we got started, we'd heard that Curtis Day had been in an accident as well.
Oh gosh.
From what I understand, let me see if I can pull up that text again, that message I got. No, I cannot. From what they said, it looked like that the Curtis was in an accident this afternoon up here in Dallas. The text I said it had possible broken nose, and him and his girlfriend had some rib damage possibly. So, guys, just remember that. Are we off?
No, that's
Oh,
for
okay.
pitchers and hitters.
Just remember that. Keep Curtis in your prayers for a quick recovery. Somebody did just put a question on there about pitching nets before we go. I'll let them cover the nets because GSA has normally did not have pitching nets when I first got
Probably
involved.
won't, except for Matt's tournaments this year.
Yeah, so and our tournaments are just slightly different. So the rules, real quick, are basically: look, they're optional for every team. If you want them, they're there. If you don't want them, it's fine. One team can have it, the other team doesn't have to have it. Doesn't matter whatsoever. If you want it, it's there for you. It's a safety issue with me. If you want it, great. If you don't have to have it. Matter of fact, if you don't want to get behind the net, you don't even have to get behind the net. The pitching screen does have to be touching the rubber, but you, like I said, you do not have to get behind the net. And I get it. There's a lot of arguing between, well, then that's an extra fielder, or well, and that's fine. But look, the spirit of having it out there is to keep somebody from making a trip to the ER on my watch. And so there's just tons of times where already in just these two tournaments that we've had the nets, that people's head would have literally been in center field if we wouldn't have had these nets. So
Well, here's my question for you. If you're going to tell us we can use the net because it's a safety issue, but the pitchers don't have to be behind the net, then you're going to have the teams that got good fielding pitchers use that net as a
I get
fifth or
it.
sixth defender.
Mhm.
So, in my opinion, you're actually creating more of a problem by letting the nets be used if the pitchers aren't going to use the nets. So, if they're not going to get behind the nets, then why are you going to allow them to use the nets as a defensive issue?
Look, I know there's a million different ways it can be, looked at. The bottom line is it's there for the pitchers that want to use it for safety reasons.
The biggest problem with forcing them to get behind the net is then it becomes an umpire's discretion thing. Did they get behind the net? Were they there long enough? and it just opens up another can of worms.
And I get that aspect of it, but I don't get the aspect of, hey, the net's there, you can use it as an extra defender,
Right.
but you don't have to be behind the net. Because you know as well as I do, there are some really good pitchers.
There are.
And for the most part, last time we
there
had
are
that,
some that doesn't matter how good you are,
you need the net.
you better have it. You better have gotten
Well, last time I didn't see too many people not get behind the net that used it. Most of them, if they're putting it on the field, they're using it. But I wanted to bring that argument up because that is a massive argument.
Well, yeah, I mean, even with the net at Worlds, I seen one guy. He got hit even with the net up, like the ball literally went through.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's just again, the spirit of why it's out there is to keep people safe. And I even on this last one, I'm recommending to everybody. I'm not requiring it, but I'm recommending if you're on the infield, you need to have gear on. You need to have your mask on. You need to be prepared, to not get hit in the face with one of these rockets. Because again, we all know these bats are hot. The balls are hot. Everyone loves hitting the ball, trying to hit the ball 400 feet. But what if you don't hit it 400 feet and it's a line drive 5 feet off the ground right at somebody's face? I mean, we all can talk and puff our chest out. Everybody, I mean, I can hit the ball hard. I'm not the hardest hitter, but I'm telling you, if I hit the ball square right up the middle, you're not catching it. I don't care who you are. So, and I'm not even that great. So I'm just telling you, it's a safety problem, that I'm trying to just provide the nets. Again, if you want it, great. If you don't want it, you think you don't need it, that's fine. And I do get the argument of, hey, it's just an extra defender. It just is what it is at that point. That's not the spirit of why it's out there. It's out there to save somebody from getting their head knocked off. I mean, that's just bottom line.
Most of the AAA teams and major teams will use it to the right reasoning because they're going to get behind the net. I saw Perry get dropped at Winter Worlds. Oh, but he took a shot.
You name drop?
Yeah, on that one I am because he got lit up, and I actually felt bad seeing him get hit. I was like, ooh, that looked like that hurt. Oh
yeah, it don't feel good. I quit pitching U-Trip because I got hit, in my leg, and I swear to God,
thought you were dead.
I thought I was gonna die. I mean, it sucks, to get hit like that. I mean, you're not, but what, 50 feet away?
50 feet.
And the ball's coming off at 100 miles an hour, some of these guys. So good luck. And when you get hit square, I promise you it don't feel good.
Nope.
And if you haven't gotten hit, it's like riding a motorcycle. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And so I just hope, the win doesn't happen while you're playing with us. I mean, I just don't.
To me, the Nets are a pilot program with Matt here in North Texas. I haven't fully decided on the Nets yet. I need a little more experience with them before I implement it in my tournaments. I always recommend that pitchers and infielders, especially on the corners, like Matt said, wear protective equipment. That's one of the questions I've had ever since we started doing senior ball. We don't run to home plate for safety reasons, so there's no collisions at the plate. We do certain things for safety reasons, but then we use the hottest bats and the hottest balls. So is safety really a concern, or is it just, word speak?
Right. I agree. We're going to wrap this thing up. We're approaching 45 minutes. I don't know. We've had some people on here pretty wild for the whole thing. I'm impressed. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank y'all for all playing with us. Thank you for playing senior ball as a whole. I just want to remind y'all, February 8th, we have 11 teams. That is the absolute max we could squeeze in. One last thing with February 8th is we'll have the pool schedule out really shortly here this week, probably Tuesday night or Wednesday night. We'll have the rules posted, I'm sure, right shortly after that. Have fun. It's 250 ball. It's the first tournament that we're hosting this year. It's a good time to get everybody together, on the teams, create teams, and have a good time. Come on out. We'll be out there in Carrollton. Like I said, it's going to be a good time. I know a lot of people are hating on the 250 ball, but it's still fun. It's still softball. It's still competitive. And so I hope we'll see everybody there. And get there as soon as you can so you can check in. I appreciate it and see y'all soon.
And I just want to thank Cameron for having us tonight.
actually a surprise. Matt sent me a text. Hey, Bart's joining in. And I'm like, okay, which is fine. The two different sections, that's fine. I like having both y'all here. Matt, thank you, brother, for letting us do it at his house.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, we're gonna wrap this up. We're at 45 minutes. It will be posted online, both on my side. I'm gonna share it onto Matt's Facebook page. It'll also be on the YouTube page.
Rolando, probably not, sir.
What was that?
So one little caveat to this weekend's tournament is Carrollton is hosting a 5K, and so the morning is basically that whole area is going to be shut down, and so the earliest I can possibly go out there is right at 1 o'clock. So the game times are going to start after that, and then so we got 11. That's why we had to cap it at actually 10, but we squeezed in 11. And so pool games will start at, I believe, 1:30 or 1:45, and we'll get all that out there. But no, it'll be pool games starting at about 1:30.
All right, guys. There was a question on Matt's Facebook page because he went ahead and went live with this for a short period of time. But this thing is over. We appreciate you listening. Stay young and keep swinging for the fences. Oh, I can't talk. End.
See you later, knuckleheads.
Are you sure you want to end this live show? Yes, I'm